Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is October 6th, year 2021. I hope everyone is doing fantastically well. We are here, or our panel members are here. Let me get started. So welcoming April back. Good evening, April. April is our psychic, and she knows quite a few modalities of healing, like Reiki, hypnotherapy, etc. Welcome, April. And then, of course, we are joined by our incredible Eileen that has been consistently here for more than a year. So incredible and eternally grateful, Eileen, that you're always here consistently. She's going to provide her own insights. Eileen has actually completed her meditation certification and offers a lot of different types of meditation. So please feel free to check out her website as well as Facebook page, Facebook group. She's posted it on this group as well. It's Keep Calm and Be Courageous. So please check that out. And then we are joined by our fellow member, Ken, who is here. Good evening, Ken. Thank you so much for joining. So I don't know if you'll see, Eileen, did you want to read this? Are you at a point where you can read this question? That was...
I can read it. I'm about halfway through the text, but I'll go back and finish after.
Perfect. Thank you.
If you are in a conflict situation where you realize that your reaction does not need to come from a place of emotion, but you need to take a moment to look deeply inside yourself for the correct way to respond, how do you not come off as stonewalling? Like if I need a minute to really create space with my negative emotions that I'm feeling, how do I convey that information without causing the other person to immediately think I'm angry?
Beautiful. Thank you, Eileen. April, you want to get started?
So one of the keys of this is in their statement. If you are in a conflict situation and you realize that your reaction does not need to come from a place of emotion, that's the key, is being able to realize, having that ability to be self-aware, to step outside of yourself. What Eckhart would call it is to recognize the pain body that wants to speak up, that wants to fight and protect and come from that emotional space. So what I found is that as I practiced that, it almost became like second nature to take that break, to take that moment, that pause. And I think you can do it without stonewalling. So the best example is in Eckhart's famous story of when his neighbor comes to him with all those papers and she's all upset and he doesn't say anything. He doesn't do anything. He just emanates presence power. And just by emanating that, sending that energy off, because remember, we're talking everything is energy and we're talking about our energy bodies, and our energy bodies, our aura, that interacts before we as the person ever interacts. Before the human body interacts, the words, the mind, your energy bodies have already interacted with each other. So just conveying that presence power will do that. The other thing is they're saying if I need a minute to really create space with my negative emotions, that actually should help the situation. It should diffuse the anger. So one thing that I always say to people is, You know, if you want the fire to go out, stop putting fuel on it. That you have to stop putting fuel on the fire. So what I also, the other additive in here is you're not responsible for the other person's emotions. You're not responsible for if they do get angry or if they think that you're angry. If you practice the presence power, they will figure out that you're not angry. And then if they have an emotion or emotions or reaction to it, that's their reaction. That's their responsibility. That's their energy. So breaking that system of codependence of, we call it being enmeshed or entangled, breaking that codependent system of, you know, whatever your emotion is, then I have to respond with my emotion. So I think that you need to take a moment, Ellie. How do I? So I really think that by practicing that presence power, you won't come off as stonewalling. It all depends, though. If the other person has a big pain body or a big ego that's at work, it won't matter what you do, what your approach is. They will still, because they are responsible for their emotions and their perceptions of the situation, of the world, of things that happen. Does that make sense? Everything.
So when they say, if you're in a conflict situation where you realize that your reaction does not need to come from a place of emotion, but you need to take a moment to look deeply inside yourself for the correct way to respond, it seems like there is a little bit of presence power where this person is realizing that they have a reaction, but still they don't have enough presence power to, after the observation, like that witnessing presence sees that there is a reaction, but the witnessing presence is not strong enough to absorb that. You know how Eckhart says, just let it pass through you. Right? Whatever is coming up, that they are reacting, they know that they are reacting, but you need to take a moment to look deeply. So you don't need to take, if you had enough presence power, you would not need to look deeply within yourself. The pause is not needed because already you will be resting in presence. Right? Like you would be allowing that whatever is arising in this present, just like what you were saying about Eckhart's story. Eckhart just sat back, like that person knocked on the door and said, open the door and I need to talk to you because this landlord is whatever, they're charging me all this. And she was like a Nazi, she had escaped a Nazi camp, right? So she had that pain body and she said, open the door. And he just sat back. So that's sitting back, and that's why, like Eileen offers meditation, Kelly is a Qigong teacher, Kelly offers Qigong. There are so many methods to learn how to sit back and rest in your awareness so that you don't have to come off as stonewalling because you're not actually doing that analysis that, oh, I need to now take a moment to figure out what my reaction should be, right, April?
Yeah. So for one of the, I can say one of the biggest things that I teach probably all day long is that you are not responsible for other people's emotions. They are not responsible for yours. And that we as humans are notoriously self-centered. We think everything is about us. Everything gets projected to us. Everything is about us. Everything is done to us. And if you can learn to step back and realize that how people behave, how they respond, how they act, has nothing to do with you. Has nothing. Now it might be projected to you and they might say, in a family, oh, your sisters are good, but you're not. Now that might be a valid thing, but it's still because the parent has an issue, not you. The bottom line. So that was the reason I bring that up, is because when I realized that, and when I actually started practicing that gave me so much freedom to drop so much garbage and to just be with myself and be okay as myself, and to stop getting pulled into all of these little drama scenarios. I was okay with being with me and being with my emotions of whatever it is that I felt, because also we have to remember, we're not going to not have emotions. That's not the goal here. Because you are a person, you are going to have emotions. So it's not like a stonewalling, I have no emotions. It's just the emotion will be one of acceptance. Acceptance is an emotional state. It is a peaceful emotional state. And when I stopped thinking that everything was about me or happening to me or for me or because of me, then I could stay in that peaceful emotional state. And I could be okay with whatever you had going on. Whatever, if you want to be crazy, I was okay with that. If you wanted to not be, I was okay with that. Right? So, yes.
So you wouldn't, because you're not waiting for the minute to really create space with my negative emotions that I'm feeling. You don't need to convey. So that conveying, waiting, conveying, all that is ego, like the thinking mind now analyzing, how am I going to be in presence power with this person, right?
Yeah.
The rest of the portion of that statement is more the ego saying, okay, the thinking mind, and knowing that they are not supposed to react. They're kind of like playing a role. It's almost like they're calculating a role. How am I going to play this role of somebody that is peaceful, right? So,
And that's a start. If that's where they're at, that's good. That's
yeah,
a start.
very good.
And they can keep moving from there. It gets easier from there. But the faster you move into acceptance, into your own space of presence power, the less struggle you will have with this.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Eileen, our meditation teacher, you want to show us ways that can be achieved?
Oh, well, now that I can do. I was just getting ready to say that I didn't have anything to add to the actual question that was posted, because April nailed everything. But if we're talking about mindfulness tools, I can teach that all day long. That obviously helps. And I think you mentioned that, Poonam, when you were speaking about the things that we can do within ourselves. So I actually just, these last 2 weeks, I was putting out, it's mindfulness for kids tools, but really they can be used for adults too. And I think we've talked about these on other episodes too, but just being aware of your body, aware of your breathing, aware of, the sounds or the sights that are in your environment. I teach this to my students too, but that mindfulness, those mindfulness practices, and there are others, they help with reactivity, like non-reactivity, but they help to get you to a place where it will, like April said, it really wouldn't matter what someone else is saying or thinking, or what they might be thinking, or what they might believing, because you're just present within yourself. So it wouldn't come to where the person says, how do I convey that information without causing the other person to immediately think I'm angry? Someone who's present and working on mindfulness practices, that's not going to cause someone to think that you're angry. And if they do, like April said, that's coming from within them. That's, they need some mindfulness practices maybe. But there's tons of tools. I think I can post in the group my 2 last episodes. I think it might be 8 of them that I'm up to. I have about 4 more that I'm going to be sharing, but really that's I think most beneficial. I mean, I agree that meditation is helpful, and that's my biggest recommendation, but for people who aren't necessarily seasoned meditators or haven't even done meditation, just basic mindfulness practices are extremely helpful. Extremely helpful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Ken, did you want to say something about this little excerpt? I think you're on mute.
Okay, yes, I would. Thank you. April hit the nail on the head, and then Eileen kind of finished it off, because I was even thinking of the breathing and staying present and just being in awareness and being the observer of how I'm reacting, whether it's my mind, my body, or whether it's my emotions. And it's funny, just being here at first, I could feel a sense of anger inside my body. I'm like, oh my God. So as April was talking about it, I'm like observing myself and seeing how I react in that situation. And I'm learning to fully listen to somebody and let them get through whatever they're saying. And then what I'll do is I'll ask them if they're through. And if they are, and then I'll say what I want to say. And when I can do that, there's usually a flow. Usually the person will allow themselves to listen to me. But if I cut them off, or if I have a reaction, that's when the fireworks go off. So it was very good. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. I think, Kelly, good evening. Good to see you. So Kelly is one of our regular panel members. He is our Qigong, one and only Qigong teacher, as well as a spiritual teacher. Kelly, I'm going to put the question. I don't know if you see the question, but let me see if I can.
No, I do not. Oh, wait,
Okay.
There it is.
That's what we are discussing. Or April, Eileen, and Ken already have spoken.
Yeah, I caught the tail end of what Ken was saying. How to not come off as stonewalling. Well, that sort of falls into the category of not being responsible for how someone else feels. And you want to make sure that, when you are actually looking at this type of a situation, that you are not operating from a fear of coming off as stonewalling, and that you are actually accepting that the space that you need is the space that you need. And you can even tell someone that that is what you are doing, that you're just, collecting yourself and processing what they're saying. A lot of the times when people are having conversations, people are so conditioned to just react and to jump in with an answer and to not actually listen. And I really like what you said, Ken, about listening to your body, because that is the main way that I process and digest and understand what kind of space that I'm in when I'm interacting with anyone, be they in person, face to face, or even through Zoom here. The very interesting use of language in terms of stonewalling. And again, looking at the use of the language used indicates that there is a fear-based perception and use of language in being afraid of stonewalling. And you're never stonewalling when you're actually taking time for yourself, when you're actually making sure that you are aligned with yourself, that you're actually present emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. The big reality is that a lot of people are not present, and a lot of people will actually take any time, and I've been on the receiving end of this a fair bit over the years. People who do not understand actually listening to themselves will take it personally or get offended, or let their egos use it as an opportunity to have a hissy fit and throw a tantrum, because you're not responding to their ego, you're not responding to their shadow, you're not responding to their patterns, you're not feeding them energetically the way that they want you to, which goes back to shadow and ego's defense patterns. The reptilian part of our brain has very, very, very set, rigid rules in terms of behavior to keep ourselves surviving, to keep ourselves in survival mode, and to not look beyond those patterns. So the second part of the question, like, if I need a minute to really create space with my negative emotions that I'm feeling, how do I convey that information without causing the other person to immediately think I'm angry? I'm going to be super blunt here, and who cares if the other person thinks that you're being angry? You're not responsible for them. If they think you're being angry, it's like, honestly, who cares? You're not there to provide support for their limited perception of reality. You're not there to coddle their infantile emotional state. You are there to support communication, plain and simple, no matter what. And especially what is most important is communication with self and being aligned with self. There is no reason why you should ever compromise yourself. And this is a really hard thing for a lot of people to do, because we are so used to compromising ourselves, so used to giving up and giving in to other people's emotional states. We are conditioned to be passive aggressive. We are conditioned to hide our own expression so that we can be accepted and loved. And that is one of the biggest things that everyone should really look at, is how much they compromise themselves and how much they cave to in the face of other people's emotional states. Because when you look at your own pattern of compromising yourself, and basically when we're worried about someone else being angry, what we're doing is we are compromising ourselves. We're compromising our alignment. We are compromising and falling into sort of that caretaking role of taking care of someone else's feelings. And I've lost a lot of friends over the years by not compromising myself and letting them be butthurt, letting their egos throw a hissy fit, and letting their shadows lose their minds. Because you get to a certain point where you realize your ethics and your principles are far more valuable to yourself, to your mental health, to your heart health, and to your spiritual health than anyone else's emotional state of being. That's not to say that there's no love there. That's not to say that this is a cold-hearted approach, but it can seem very cold-hearted, because when you pull away from someone else's drama, when you pull away from someone else's ego feeding, they will lose their minds, because they energetically, emotionally can feel that you're doing something different, which is outside of their program, which is outside of their pattern, and it scares them. And this is normal. And anyone who's actually choosing to do this should be aware that they're going to be on the receiving end of a unpleasant word storm of hissy fits and ego panic. Because when you step out of a pattern that people are used to feeding on, and this is what being present and aligned with yourself and being emotionally, mentally, spiritually present is all about. When you step out of these patterns, the people that have been used to and who have used those patterns to feed off of emotionally will lose it. Sometimes in big ways, sometimes in small ways. And that is normal. And that is just a part of the process. And over time, some of the people who have lost their minds in my direction, and I'm, being polite and not swearing here, have come around because they realize that I haven't stopped loving them. I haven't stopped caring. I haven't stopped being kind and compassionate. But when you first initially step out of a limited space, especially a limited communication space that is all about being passive aggressive and compromising your ability to be truthful and honest and really loving. And sometimes love is pointing out a person's ego delusions. Once people realize that you still love them and still care about them, it changes. But listening and feeling with the body is the primary way that I do that, because sometimes there's just so much information. There's no point in trying to mentally analyze it. When you listen to your body, when you listen to your heart, you get to that space of knowing and having that understanding that that's what matters the most, is getting to that space and not compromising your path and not compromising your integrity and your ethics and your principles. 2 cents.
I'm about to collect a whole bunch of change now. Thank you. So how do I convey that information without causing the other person to immediately think I'm angry? How do I convey this information without causing the other person to immediately think I'm angry? So this person, like you were saying, Kelly, they need to pay attention to their body. So they already know that they're angry.
The main thing is to not, even if you feel the anger, is to not act or express from it. It's perfectly normal to feel anger. It's perfectly righteous to feel anger. But the discipline, the real strength and the real courage is to feel that anger and still act from love. You can actually still act from love and be in love while you are processing anger. And I know that this is maybe, might be a foreign concept. It was for me at first. I grew up with a pretty fierce temper and a lot of anger patterns that I had to look at and dig through. And which is one of the reasons why I got into the martial arts, because I wanted to figure that out and how to physically process it. But it's okay to feel the anger. You should not stop yourself from feeling ever, 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 ever. However, letting yourself feel the anger and feel the love at the same time is what the journey through all of that really is about, because you can feel both. You can feel sadness, grief, anger, fury even, but also feel kindness, love, and compassion. And this is what the ancient gurus and teachers have all talked about being in two worlds at once. So once you understand how to walk in two worlds at once, then the linear three-dimensional world is actually becomes very simple.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Beautiful. So April, Summer asked a question, but then after this event, how do you react next time you see them in a week or a month? And I think she wrote something about as well.
So one of the things that when she put the second question in here, it dawned on me that we're basically explaining this without saying it outright. And what we're really looking at here is people pleasing. We're looking at people pleasing, and we're looking at being worried about somebody else's feelings. We're not hurting somebody else being angry. This is people pleasing. And there was another statement where she said, here it is. Very tough sometimes though when they've hurt you. So the other part of this, so we're looking at people pleasing, and we're also looking at the reason that she's saying immediately think I'm angry. And then Poonam, you said she's aware that there's anger there. Behind anger is pain. It's always pain behind anger. So it's all linked. They've hurt you and you are actually angry. As Kelly said, validate the anger, validate the hurt, validate the pain, let it be hurt until you let that reside. So we don't ever want to stuff feelings, ignore feelings, bypass feelings. Be angry. When I have issues or when I get angry, I'm angry. The problem is that usually when you're on the spiritual path, once we get angry, we are intensely angry, right? Because we are good at holding our presence power. So it takes a pretty big event to get us there. But again, whenever you have anger, whenever you have pain, it is because you took it personally. You did not separate out what is this person's functioning level? How do they think? What's their culture? What's their morals? What's their value? What's their perceptions of life? What you did not, again, you took it personally, so you got hurt. So to me, if this was my situation and I had to go around that person again, would it be uncomfortable? Probably, but I'm sure there would be some element of being uncomfortable. But like what Kelly said, when you believe in yourself, when you act with those agreements of being in presence power, of doing your best at all times, of being in emotional control, practicing acceptance, when you believe in yourself, then you can go around somebody that you're not in agreement with, because you have that inner space of knowing that you are in the right space, you are in the right energy, you are centered. And so this also hints to not believing in yourself or thinking perhaps you did something wrong, when in fact that's not the case, right? So one way to, when you go back around that person, if you have any doubt in yourself, it will be awkward. When you remove that doubt, when you know that you acted in good faith and in integrity to yourself, your own principles, you will not have that awkwardness. It may jump in, but you will be able to get rid of it, because you will stop and you will say, you know what? No, I did the right thing. This is not my problem. This is their problem, right? And you won't worry about it. When you are people pleasing, then you get all those thoughts. Oh, what are they going to say? Are they looking at me? Am I looking at them? Are they mad at me? Did they tell so-and-so? Did they really? Seriously? If people do this about people in the grocery store, I said, what do you care? Are they going home with you? You met them in the bread aisle, for God's sakes. What? Are they going home and making your dinner or something? I don't understand. Why do we care? Right? So I would also look at that the conversation you're having in the head. But if you can truly believe in yourself that you did the right thing, that you didn't do anything wrong, that you acted with integrity, and you practiced your acceptance, your presence power, then stop that conversation in the head and don't worry about what they think about you. Just be you and be true to you. That's how I would deal with it.
So I'm going to analyze this being hurt. Since Eckhart really talks about our ego, which is our identified mind. So we have made a thought formation or identified with a thought of who we think we are. And then why are we hurt? What part of us is hurt? So how would you explain that? Because the other person is now, if you look at the soul and the soul contract, the other person is actually your greatest spiritual teacher, because they are causing the unconsciousness so that they can test you for your presence power. Can you come with a place, just like Kelly said a little while ago, can you come from a space of loving kindness and compassion? Why is there hurt? When there is no hurt, then you can meet them next week or the week after, right?
Well, it's because the person that wrote this question doesn't want to hurt anybody. So we have that people pleasing, and that is a good nature, to not want to hurt anybody. They don't want to cause anybody hurt. They don't want to cause anybody pain, but they give too much, and they give selfishly. They overgive, and they don't ask for back. And it's a boundary. I know you guys don't like the word boundary. It's a boundary issue, because they've given so much, and the other person is violating them because of it, is what's happening. So when you go in and you look at personally, it is important, and this may take time. It can take a day, it could take weeks, it could take a month. Sometimes it could take a year for you to dissect which part of this situation did I take personally, which part of it gave me the pain, which part of it caused me the fear. So like, there's only a couple areas in my life that kind of get my tail, so to speak. One would be my children, the other one would be work. So let's take the work one, for example. So if I have a job and something happens at work, it's either hitting me in one of two areas: my job security, or I have extremely high ethics and morals with my clients. It's hitting the moral aspect of my clients getting the best care. And that gets to me because I don't like to not provide the best care. So that would provoke that feeling of anger within me. And that's where the fear lies, is that somehow I'm not giving my clients the best quality care. And that ability to do that has been taken from me. Okay. So that is where, but I'm taking that personally. That's how I'm perceiving it. So when you take something personally and it hurts, it's important to dissect it and look at, where am I taking this personally? Where am I receiving this wrong? Where am I not seeing this through the eyes of source? Where am I off base? Because if I change my perception, then I can change everything else. When I change my perception of what's really going on, and I practice acceptance, then I can have that inner peace, or I can at least be on the path to inner peace. Right?
Beautiful. And the key lies to, I am not connected to source. So I'm not aligned with my inner beingness, and I'm not, because source at that point is, we may say we are hurt by this other person, but source is loving them unconditionally, as well as sources loving us unconditionally in that moment. So because source is infinite love, it's going to love the other person unconditionally as well. It is our human mind, humanness, that'll say, oh, I'm hurt by the other person, right? So beautiful. Thank you. Eileen, did you want to say something to, I think Summer actually wrote some more about this. I
I was just
realized,
getting ready to read that.
go ahead.
Do you want me to
Yes,
read it out
please.
loud, or do you? Okay. I realized that person is a control freak and creates divisions between friends, and a climate to have them argue while she steps back, pretending not to notice. Weird way of living. And I think you already read the question that was before that. So do you want me to respond to the reaction the next time you see them?
Both, you can respond to both, since she supplemented that with "I realize that person is a control freak."
Okay. So I've actually had this happen many times, in the sense that someone has been either reactive to me previously, or has maybe done something that has made it so I've wanted to react, but maybe I didn't, or maybe I did react, which has unfortunately happened a couple times in the last few days, which I haven't been like that in a really long time. But so when I come into contact with that person again, I am right back where I was, not in the sense of angry, but back in that present, like the present moment that I'm having right then with them. So I don't carry that stuff over. And I'm teaching this to my students, like I stay in the present moment, like in my body, focusing on my breath. So I'm going to talk to them. I'm not going to try and hash something out. And, it's the past, and our whole practice that we're talking about week after week after week is being here now. So I'm not going to bring up the past, and I'm going to be right here in non-reactivity, the best of my ability. Now, if I said something or maybe did something that I feel maybe I had hurt them in some way, then obviously I would be in a better place at that moment and be able to, apologize if needed, or explain something if needed. But and then the comment about the one that I just read, that seems like, I don't know, that last comment seems like a lot of mind activity, creating divisions between friends, the climate to have them arguing while she steps back, pretending not to notice. Like, I don't know what is going through people's heads. I don't know what they're thinking or what they're feeling. I try not to even attempt to do that. I, like to really try and be as present as possible for myself and everyone around me. So I wouldn't really be worrying about what people might be thinking or not thinking, or what they might be feeling, or judging in any way, or thinking that someone might be doing something or pretending not to do something. None of that would really go through my head, I guess.
Beautiful. Anything else, Ali?
I don't think so. And I don't have any more questions either, but I'll let you know if I do.
Awesome. Thank you. So amazing. Yes, the second part is what Eckhart would call the baggage that we add, the narrative that we add. I realize that person is a control freak and creates divisions between friends, etc., 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 is what you're saying, Ali. The self-talk in the head that is adding baggage to, like what Eckhart says, is bring down the sword of presence and look at the naked isness of the present moment. That person, whatever, they were angry, right? That's the naked isness. And that's it. It's done, over with. And like Eileen says, forgiveness, like every present moment, it's forgiveness is not what we did in the past or that traumatic event. It's every present moment to every present moment. We learn to forgive, we allow, give it the spaciousness. We've been talking, right, Kelly, Ken, April have been saying, Eileen has been saying, acceptance. So give it spaciousness of the present moment.
Yeah, I was talking with my students the last 2 weeks. We've been calling them like mind movies, because they have all these juicy details, and then another detail comes and another detail comes. And before you know it, you have this whole like story playing out in your mind. And we've been talking about just cutting it off.
Yes.
Shut it off.
Unplug that My Movie.
Exactly.
Unplug that analog TV. Take it off. Mind movies is something different. Dr. Joe Dispenza actually uses mind movies to visualize like a vision board.
Oh yeah, yes, I've looked into that because I read that's in
Becoming Supernatural.
Yes, Becoming Supernatural, the green one, the one that I read,
So when
finished
you
reading over the summer. Yes, I've looked into that. I haven't found out too much more since the summer, but yes, that's just for me, that term mind movie is something that is easy for kids to
know what they're
understand.
doing. Yes.
Because we were using the term stories, and I'm like, they're relating that to like what they're writing on the paper. So the mind movie really seems to connect more to them.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the insight. Ken, it's your turn.
Yes, thank you. Boy, this brought up a lot. And to me, I want to say that was so codependent, that the person was so separated and disconnected from self that, and I myself have just been going through some of these issues where somebody was insinuating that I'm angry. And I'm like, no, I'm not angry. Well, aren't you feeling this or aren't you feeling this? And I went, no. And then a day or two would go by, and the first thing it would ask me after a couple of days is, I hope you're not still angry. And I'm like, and then what it is I'm pissed off. So it's something where realizing that, and so I'm so glad, and I'm not surprised at all that this is the experience that I'm going through, that I'm drawn to this group. It's magical. It's always this way, it seems like. So it's something where and lately I've been just saying, we're going to have a really uncomfortable conversation, because a lot of discomfort is coming up. So that has been helping myself and the other person to feel the discomfort, and then saying, okay, what's the root of the discomfort, rather than the projection. So this is just really, really helping how we learn these behaviors from our family of origin. And then what we do is we just keep repeating those behaviors, whether it's at work, whether it's in relationship. So this is a great way to just to really have these conversations, to untangle or to get into questions. So, and then learning not to be triggered when asking these questions. So it's a great topic that I feel a lot of people can get enmeshed with. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken, for that insight. Beautiful. Kelly, did you want to give some? Summer has joined us, is with us. So Summer and Sri Lakshmi are with us. Thank you so much for joining.
It's my
Sure.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great listening to all that happening there, trying to understand and learn things.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So if I can speak to Summer's revelation, and also go back to, how do you deal with the person, a week or a month later? It's very simple. Same way. You let yourself feel the anger, you let yourself feel whatever you're feeling, but you do not act from it. You act from understanding and awareness that is what the person wants, because they're trying to trigger you deliberately. They're trying to cause you to have an emotional reaction and pull you out of alignment. Now, control issues are a very specific form of shadow expression or ego expression. The way that the ego feeds off of drama, feeds off of being able to control and manipulate other people. And this goes to someone being exceptionally insecure and defensive to such an extreme that they will manipulate everyone around them to become dramatic and to control their external environment and external experiences, conversations, events, and such things so that they feel safe. People who have control issues like this, who are manipulating other people, do it because they don't feel safe. And once you begin to understand and approach that person from that perspective, my own experience has shown that people who have these kind of control issues, it tends to completely disarm their energy, tends to completely disarm their ego manipulation, because once you are aware, it's like Schrodinger's cat, right? It's like once you are aware of something, that thing changes. And this is especially true of the ego and of shadow and of patterns. Once you are aware of a pattern, you can then begin to listen to yourself react and or respond, and what your mind does, what your body does, what your emotions do, and why. And especially when you are dealing with someone who is a control freak, quote unquote, understand that it is a learning experience that the universe is set in front of you to understand the deeper aspects of and reflect back to you your own defense mechanisms and the way that you also have used control on yourself and on other people and external situations. When you begin to understand that this learning experience is designed to give you information, and that what you should be doing is, instead of responding to the manipulation, is you should be listening to the information and looking for it, then it really, really changes everything. So the casual sort of reality of someone being a control freak and pushing people's buttons is very common. And it's a lot more common than people like to admit. And it's used far more often than people want to admit either. The reality is that we have been born into an illusion that is designed to cause us to not feel safe, because that illusion separates us from source and separates us from our divine aspects, until we actually stop, evaluate, and begin to understand that there's so much more than just 3D reality and the emotional extremes that we keep getting triggered into. So being aware of a thing changes a thing. So Samar, the simple fact that you were able to realize the control issues and the manipulation means that you can now change and consciously, actively participate in observing the pattern and observing the manipulation and not reacting to it, letting yourself feel the anger, but not act from it, and developing control and discipline and actual mastery over your emotions and thoughts. And this is the actual real gift that this person has given you, is this type of, as unpleasant as it may be, but this kind of learning experience is a real crucible for dealing with control issues and being able to reflect on how that all makes you feel, and whether or not feeling all of that gets you angry, and whether or not that anger actually pulls you out of your heart, out of alignment, and out of being present with yourself. And if it does, you know what? That's fine. That's part of the learning process too. Don't ever be hard on yourself for having a reaction, for letting yourself get caught up in something emotional, because that is also the whole point. Without having those types of learning experiences, we can't learn. And when we do have those kinds of experiences, we do learn, even if it's a little bit, because sometimes it takes a whole bunch of little bits to make that one big block that you can then remove and see the light behind it.
Beautiful.
It's,
Ken said beautiful. Beautiful. And that's what I feel, Kelly, like I work in corporate America, right? So there are all kinds of different, like this is a whole different community, the spiritual community, our spiritual family is totally different. And the core group of meditators are actually bonded so well that there's a lot of love, unconditional love flowing for each other, right? And the panel members, the people that we co-create workshops with. So it's very loving. The interactions are very loving, but that's our true test. And that's what I feel. A lot of people say, oh, I'm going to withdraw from everything, right? Like a lot of people take off from technology. I'm like, that is your true test. Can you actually balance everything? Can you come, even if you have holding a phone, do you have balance over your, how is the pull? What is this one thing that you need to go check Facebook, or you need to respond to this post? Every reaction, every post that pulls you, know that there is a reaction, and that needs, what is internally going on with us is what needs to be examined, more than why is this person a control freak, or all they are is unconsciousness of the, like Eckhart uses the sweetest term. I find unconscious is like a very non-polarized term. Like he just labels everything as unconscious, the same way as when people are angry or frustrated or irritable, he doesn't like say, oh, this person was angry or this person was irritable. He just uses one flat word, they're annoying, right? One flat generic word, annoying, and that's it. He won't say, like, you know, the judgment, and I can see his presence power in the usage of the vocabulary that he's using to describe as well. That he won't say control freak or this or that. He'll just say they are annoying, or that it's unconsciousness. And that shows the presence power, that he doesn't want to be pulled into the judgment and say that this person is so and so. So beautiful. Thank you. I'll ask. So we'll go back, April. This was a question asked of Eckhart in the School of Awakening. I think this can be completed pretty quick. This person asked, what type of conversations do awakened people have? This person thought that just being awakened means that you shouldn't show any enthusiasm, right? You have to be very impassive, kind of. And that when we start talking, right, whatever conversation we are having, we're either having about the past or the future. And they feel that they're losing presence power because we are talking about past and future. So you want to talk about what type of conversation do awakened people need to have? Or is it different, or what is it?
That we need to have?
What type of conversations do awakened people have? Because they don't think that awakened people, they think that the conversation anybody is going to have is about past and future, so that awakened person, because they're supposed to be in present, are not showing presence while talking about past and future. Does it make sense?
Yeah, okay. You can talk about the past and the future with presence power. I talk about the past a lot, not in a way of kind of like Samar brought up here, where she brings this topic up over and over and over. So not in that manner, as far as me drudging up my past. And when you bring up the past, you bring up that emotional content. It's attached, an emotional status is attached with the past. So not in that way, but I talk about the past quite often. And actually, some people have said to me, well, you just said that and was like, nothing's wrong. Like, but you can do that. I don't have the emotional attachment to it. So it's not that you can't talk about the past, and it's also not that you can't talk about the future. You know, Kelly said it today, and I've often thought this, and I would say that it's probably one of the primary things that I teach is emotional intelligence. Eckhart teaches emotional intelligence. That's what he teaches. He's a spiritual teacher, and he has other modalities and other things in there, but ultimately what he's teaching is emotional intelligence, where our life is not consumed by the emotions. It's not consumed by the responses, reactions. So I laughed when you said that, because I thought about some of my conversations with awakened people. That's so funny to me but I think those conversations are super fun, right? I mean, when I talk to regular, I'm like giving things labels now and titles. Like when I talk to regular people, I just can't even stand on myself. This is crazy. When I talk to regular people, you know, I mean, I have normal conversations, but when I get to talk to somebody who's awake, and we get to talk about energy and spirits and crystals, and that is so much fun. So I'm not answering your questions on the deepest level, but I think the key is that you don't have the emotional attachment to either the past or the present. But for me, conversations, even clients that I have, like I have clients that, you know, it's just strictly a few topics. And then I have clients, I believe that Source sends me my clients on purpose. He intentionally sends them to me because he knows what I know. And I get several clients who in the traditional clinical field, they're awake. And I get to take their treatment to a whole new level. And it is so fun. We get to start talking about your energy and how your thoughts are formed and all of that stuff. So I don't know, that's my input, I guess. I just think that's a funny question, and awake people, we can talk about all of it. And those are the best conversations. Those are the funnest conversations that I have. So.
Phenomenal. Thank you. The question itself, what type of conversation do awakened people have? We are already separating ourselves, right? By saying, I'm awakened, I need to have a different type of conversation. Thank you, Kelly. So I found that funny, right? To call myself awakened. No, you're just, when you align with your inner beingness, something expresses itself, consciousness expresses itself, and it is going to be what it is going to be. We don't know what it's going to be. It depends on that day, that person, whatever it is. So thank you. Eileen, did you want to speak about this? Have your conversations changed?
Some things that really come up for me a lot are the pace. I think the pace has slowed down. More presence, more peace, more silence. That doesn't mean everything is always silence, but that silence is okay. It's less uncomfortable, I guess. I don't know.
And it's okay to talk about the past and future?
Well,
They
yeah,
feel-
I think it's going to come up. It's not that you can't talk about the past and the future. because the conversation that's being had is something that is needing to be had in this present moment. Now, having a conversation to explain all the things that were wrong about the past and hashing it all out and reliving it, no, not that. Or explaining all the things that maybe you're worried about to come in the future, that's not either. But that doesn't mean past and future doesn't ever come up in conversation. It does. It's all in how you're having it unfold in the present moment. I don't know if that's making sense.
It is. It is.
Okay.
One of the things that I don't exactly remember how it was said in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, Dr. Joe Dispenza says the past, and you know, one of his meditations, he says, we need to bless our past that it turned into wisdom.
Yes.
So that part, you know, people take Eckhart's pointer of you need to be in the present moment does not mean like all like April was talking about, and Aline, in this present moment, I can look at my past, realizing that I am in this moment, examining my past. And what he said in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is you need to lose the charge about that negative, that past moment. And what we need to lose the charge of is, even if it's a positive moment, we need to lose the charge of how happy it was. If it was a negative moment, traumatic, we need to lose the charge. Because I was reading in Cleanse to Heal, I was reading how adrenaline is stored in our body. And what medical medium says is adrenaline is storing even happy moments, the information it is storing. So when we have a great birthday at 6 years of age, I remember when my brother was I was 6, 7 years old. My mom threw him the hugest party. Like there were a lot of people. And I remember there was a cake. I can still remember the cake. Like there was pearls, like it was a ship, huge ship. And there were pearls of the ship. Like it was decorated with those, whatever that fondant is, right? It's made out of pearls. So I still remember the pearls. But those happy moments also cause like adrenaline, too much adrenaline in the body, and the body cannot process that much adrenaline, and we're eating high fat food and it gets stored in our fat cells. So whether it was a happy moment or a sad moment, and that's what Dr. Joe Dispenza is saying, pull that out of the quantum field, pull that experience where you're not experiencing all this emotional charge. So remove that emotional charge out of your memory. And that's exactly what April was talking about, right? Like you can relate the event, you can look at the event and neutrally, the present moment was neutral, always neutral. Whatever happened in the past present moment was very neutral. You can neutrally state what happened and no charge to it. And that will bring healing. That will bring more healing than anything else. The more we experience, we'll still continue to experience that emotional negativity or positive, whatever it may be, and continue to release more adrenaline, that will store toxicity in our body. And then we'll end up with like the cancers of the world and all these lifestyle choice illnesses, Alzheimer's of the world, autoimmune conditions, chronic illness, all that is not processing our emotions. That's the topic today, not processing our emotions properly. Thank you, Ali. Ken, did you want to say something? And I'll let Kelly wrap it up. Go ahead. You're on mute, I think.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
to me, with the question, to me, it's absence of fear. And in order for me to allow that or to feel that, I had to, if I go back to past and future, I know that's mind energy. And what happens is it will just keep me stuck in the fear and I'm paralyzed. So it's something where once I can allow myself to say, okay, so if I'm in that state and if I'm present and then thought comes in or an old wound comes in, then I'm able to feel the wound and stick with it and embrace it. And that's where I need to hold that wound as painful as it gets. And then I'm able to have a breakthrough. And then downloading of information, it's almost like a rush of information. And so much of what you were just saying, Poonam, I feel like you hit the nail on the head with once we can actually take all that and deal with it and then let it go through the process of healing. And then we're able to eliminate that and then move on from it rather than just keep recycling it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's how trauma, like people who have what Eckhart says, right? Like the teacher called suffering, that are addicted to their victim identity. I see them repeating their traumatic event over and over again and reliving the emotion. And then it's not leaving your body. You're just imprinting that memory over and over. 30 years later, you're still imprinting. Now it's 30-year-old wound, right? So that's
Recycling.
recycling and cementing, like almost concrete. Now it's become granite level of ossified structure, right? So thank you. Go ahead, Kelly.
So the question is, what kind of conversations do awakened people have? Well, that in itself is an ego statement. There's an assumption there that awakened people actually have different kinds of conversations. And that, again, beautifully said, Poonam, about how people seem to take Eckhart Tolle's statement about, or position about being present to an extreme where, well, if you're present, you shouldn't care, you shouldn't be involved in the past or the future. And that's not true. That's sort of, you know, there's a level of emotional disassociation there where people want to be spiritually self-righteous by considering themselves more present than others. And that's an ego trap. Being present, being awakened or enlightened, or even just aware and emotionally present. I mean, my own personal experience and the evolution of my own journey has shown me that whether or not you want to call it being awakened or enlightened or whatever, the attachment, the emotional attachment disappears more and more to the point where with certain things, it's completely gone altogether and you just have information. And this is what being present is actually all about, is understanding how to feel all the information, how to understand all the information without any ego attachment, without any defensiveness, without any resistance whatsoever. To be perfectly aligned and in the present moment, you can still talk about the past. The past is your information. The future is also an indication, or your feelings and preferences about the future are an indication of your own journey and what you feel in your heart about your path. And these are important spaces to understand and to listen to, because it is all about listening to everything and learning how not to be ego attached, how not to be emotionally attached, fixated on an outcome, or mentally fixated on a past event, and understanding what those feelings are inside the body when we're emotionally present, so that we can deconstruct, dissolve, and undo the glue that's keeping us stuck. You know, everyone has different levels of being aware. And I prefer the term awareness, or being aware, instead of awakened, because, you know, a lot of people who suddenly like wake up to new information, it's like, oh my God, I'm awake. And it's just like, yeah, but you know, it's that little piece of information. When being aware is like, that's like one key, you know, being awake is like that, you're hitting that one key on the piano over and over and over again, as if that's like the whole keyboard. And it's like not, because there's all those other keys you have to learn are there, and you got to learn how to play those too. So for me, being aware and being conscious and actively participating in being conscious means that I have a responsibility to not be emotionally attached, to be ego attached. I have a conscious responsibility to be present all the time, as much as I possibly can be. And sometimes it's very challenging. Other times it's very easy. But everything is about learning what you are doing with your awareness. And having conversations about the past and the future are actually excellent spaces to understand and to use to learn whether or not we are attached to those spaces. So to remove ourselves and to shut ourselves off from accessing that information just doesn't make sense, because that's our information. We can learn from having those conversations. We can learn how we feel, how we interact, and whether or not there is attachment, whether or not we are stuck. It's only by having conversations with ourselves and other people that we learn. I mean, I suppose I could go like sit in a cave for 9 years and figure it all out. That'd be awesome. But as you said earlier, Poonam, which I really, really appreciated you bringing up, being in the society, in this culture, and again, I spent 30 years working in the political culture and corporate culture here in Canada. So yeah, whole other universe. Removing oneself from accessing certain information, removing ourselves from the world at large, isolating ourselves, is not what this is about. This is about being present, learning how strong we actually are in the face of all adversity. This is why what's going on right now really is the Great Awakening, because this is probably the most global, heightened event everybody is experiencing and having to deal with at the same time, that is causing so much chaos, so much fear to come to the surface, and a lot of courage and a lot of recognition that things are changing and that things have to change. And this is why we have to talk about the past, because, well, places in the past haven't been so great. Some of them have, but not so great. And in the present moment, it's like, well, gosh, we have to have that comparison. We have to have not exactly for mental comparison or analysis or ego attachment, but for understanding of the contrasts and how they make us feel. Because when we have those contrasts and we understand what those feelings are and why they're there, what they bring out in us, then we can guide ourselves along our path. We can understand why things are so important to us. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps here. Oh, and that's really important, having those conversations. Don't isolate yourself from one piece of information or another. Use it all to learn about yourself, to be more and more present, more and more disciplined, stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's the whole point of this Great Awakening right now, is to use it as a tool that it is for forging your own path, the way that you've always wanted it to be. So awakened conversations, enlightened conversations, you can have depth, even if you are unconscious, if you know a lot of stuff. I used to do that. I know what that's like. It is very different when you are present. And for me, it's beautiful to share space with anyone and everyone, regardless of what level of awareness they're at, because for me, it's always an opportunity to support and quite honestly, to share love, to share loving kindness, and to be there for that person. If, because if someone comes into my life and suddenly some stranger strikes up a conversation, it's like the universe saying, hi, hello, all right, we're having this conversation. Let's just talk. And because the words that come out of our mouths are actually literally 5% of what we're actually communicating. because everything else is energy. Everything else is our spirit communicating and sharing on all of those invisible levels. And this is why having conversations about anything and everything are really important, because you learn. You're always learning. It's all about learning, no matter what.
2 cents. 2 cents.
4, 3.5.
3.5. I got 5.5 cents today. Thank you. Incredible. Thank you, Kelly. So I want Caesar to wrap up. This is our last question, Caesar. And the question is what type of conversations do Awaken people have? And they have a feeling that if we are having a conversation about past or future, then we are not present. So we are not an awakened person. So they asked Eckhart this question during School of Awakening. So let's hear your comment, and you can wrap it up, Caesar. Hit it out of the park.
Well, I think Kelly actually just hit it out of the park. You can definitely be present and have a conversation regarding any period in time, being past or future. And again, it is, as Kelly said, it is important to actually discuss whatever it is that comes about, because that's what you're guided to do in the present moment. If that's a conversation that strikes itself up with one who is present, and that's exactly the conversation you are supposed to be having at that time, regardless of what it entails and the point in time you're speaking about. The present moment, when you're rooted in presence, you are guided, because the awareness level of what is constantly, well, let's just say you are in that current of life, the flow of life, the energy stream of life, of consciousness that we are, which is constantly guiding us to the next moment, to the next conversation, to the next action. I fully believe that, because we get the little impulses that the universe is constantly throwing at us, and we can only get them if we are present. We can only be aware of them if we are rooted in the present. That is what we call presence power on this panel. Yes. So to have any type of a conversation as being awakened or whatever, I love Kelly's explanation about the awareness opposed to the awakened, and it is very true, but yeah, if you are present, you are guided, because you pay attention to all the little things in life, and you just go where life takes you, and that includes conversations. And to know that you are having a conversation about whatever it may be, know that that is a conversation that you are supposed to be having. You don't attach yourself to the past when you're speaking about it. You don't attach yourself to the future as a destination prize when speaking about it. As Eckhart says, if there's a time to plan for the future and it can be done now, that's what you do, and then you let it go. That would be the same thing Abe says, get out of the way. So set it forth and let it be as it may, and the rest will take its place as it should.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. You all have done an incredible job, and thank you to the panel here, Ken, Caesar, Kelly, Eileen, and April. Eternally grateful, and have a fantastic week and many blessings. Much love to everyone, and many blessings, whoever was online as well. Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Bye.